Hello and welcome to the Manchester is Red podcast. My name is Steven Railston. I'm your host today, and we're recording on quite a sunny autumnal afternoon, Monday afternoon here in Manchester. Actually, Samuel, it's a morning, isn't it? It's 11 a.m. as I start this podcast in incorrect fashion. But I'm joined by my colleague today, Samuel Luckhurst. Plenty to talk about after Manchester United's 1-0 win against Burnley on Saturday night, and Samuel was across at Turf Moor. But before I ask Samuel how he is on this Monday morning, we've got plenty of sections to get into. 3 sections today. We'll discuss the Burnley performance, the good, the bad and the ugly, the Jonny Evans masterclass, and we'll look ahead to Crystal Palace on Tuesday night in the Carabao Cup, because the football's coming thick and fast at the moment. So Samuel, now that's over and done with, how are you, my friend?
I'm not bad, thank you very much. It reminds me a bit of Ten Hag, your introduction there. He said to someone, be sharp, please, because they said morning and it was in the afternoon at Carrington on Friday. So he's also a stickler for differentiating between the morning and the afternoon. He's
a strict timekeeper, isn't he? I'm not sure I'm as strict, but
yes, indeed.
You've got to be when you're manager of Manchester United, of course. Anyway, Samuel, a very gutsy performance at Turf Moor on Saturday night. I think it's fair to describe it as a really, really important win. A disappointing few weeks at the club. Defeat against Brighton, Bayern Munich. 3 defeats in a row, of course, in the end. And then to bounce back like that, look, it wasn't a vintage performance by any means, but they just needed to get the 3 points, didn't they? Like I say, after a disappointing few weeks.
As a colleague said in the press room afterwards, thank God they won that. And he's not a United fan, but he wanted a quiet Sunday, as we all did, and a quiet Monday as well. It has the makings of quite a serene week now, maybe a serene couple of weeks, given that they've got 4 home games. They've got to be aiming to win all of them. But as far as Saturday went, any win would have sufficed. It wasn't the time for a statement win. It wasn't about playing Cup DM football or thrashing Burnley. Just as long as they won, that's all that mattered. And they did win, and there was a gutsy performance from United. It wasn't one that is going to live long in the memory. If anything, the best performers were probably the away days. The atmosphere in that end at Turf Moor was terrific. It had the makings of being a really good away day atmosphere. What with it being an evening kick-off. The cricket club, Burnley Cricket Club, is conveniently located just behind that stand, so they had a nearby watering hole to enjoy themselves at prior to kick-off, and that was pretty full when I got to the ground about 3 hours before kick-off. And the players owed the match goers one. In the week in Munich, the majority of them stayed behind and applauded the United players for a dignified defeat, I suppose you could say. And it was high time that the players delivered. And really, there's not a lot of... You look at that Burnley team and there's not a lot to be... It doesn't exactly strike the fear into you at all, and it's not the banana skin that it used to be under Sean Dyche as well, for various different reasons. I mean, Burnley are a completely different side from then, and I think Burnley for a period it had replaced Stoke as the acid test, or purportedly the acid test in English football anyway, of going there for an evening kickoff. But it did, in some ways, I think, play into United's hands that Burnley are a footballing side these days, and United made adjustments. Although there were 3 changes, there were 3 surprising recalls, I think it's fair to say, but the majority of them were well and truly vindicated, and it was a wonderful winning goal as well. You couldn't... that was just such a beautiful pass by Jonny Evans, who I've always said he's always been a better footballer than defender, and there's a reason why he was once entrusted at left back in a cup final by Sir Alex Ferguson. He switched there, I think, in the 2009 League Cup final, because he can, although it's not common knowledge exactly, he has got a decent left foot on him, and it was an even better right footer from Fernandes for the winner.
I think Burnley had around 65% possession by the end of the game.
Yeah, I saw that.
There was even a stat flashed up you wouldn't have saw unless they had the Montes in the press box, where they had around 90% possession in the 80th minute, like across the last 5 minutes of that spell of the game. But for all the possession that they had, they didn't do much with it, and that was the key, wasn't it, really? United kind of kept them at arm's length. They had a few shots from the edge of the box, hit the post at one point, which was a bit of a warning, but they never really looked like scoring, did they, Samuel? And then look, Jonny Evans, we need to go into his performance a bit more because it was a masterclass. I think it's fair to say as well. Is he Paolo Maldini these days, Samuel? Johnny Evans?
I don't know about that, but as I said, when he was at United, his first spell, everybody knew he was a really good footballer, but he could get bullied by particularly physical strikers, and he tended to have his best games against the better strikers who wouldn't rely on their strength as much because they'd want to out-football a defender, and Evans was actually quite ideal to pit against them in that sense. You go back to Sir Alex Ferguson's final season, he started ahead of Nemanja Vidic against Real Madrid in the Bernabeu when Madrid would have had... I mean, Ronaldo would certainly have been starting. I think it would have been possibly Benzema starting up front, maybe Higuain. They rotated quite a lot back then, but it was that Madrid were champions at the time. But he was having a good season at that point. But that wasn't the exception to the norm because that often happened. He had a couple of good games against Didier Drogba as well. I know Drogba was very physical, but he was a tremendous footballer. And as I said, where Burnley are kind of like laden with footballers now rather than target men or battering rams.
Yeah,
that can play into a team like United, given the team that United selected played to their advantage. And what I liked about Evans was that it's been striking this season that when the chips have been down with United, there haven't been enough conversations. There's not been enough communication between the players. Evans is a proper grown-up. He's 35. And although he might be the fifth choice centre-back, he didn't act like it. And that authority, a lot of the players, you could see they buzzed off it. Reguilon did, Lindelof did. Casemiro and Dalot started having their own conflab after Lindelof and Arna, and Evans had one in I think it was probably around the 75-minute mark. And really, United need more characters like that. I'm not saying they need to be signing players who played in the last title-winning squad. There aren't many left who are still playing anyway. And you certainly don't want loads of 35-year-olds in your squad either. But although it was a gamble bringing him in, and it was somewhat enforced, I suppose, by Martinez being injured and Varane clearly not being fully fit, it was well and truly vindicated. And then it will have been in the back of his mind that he went to Turf Moor as a 21-year-old when Burnley won their first ever Premier League game 14 years ago. He played there in a very, very fortuitous goalless draw for United under Louis van Gaal. So his presence, people would have seen that and thought, well, here's something portentous. And he did his absolute utmost to ensure he didn't suffer a similar embarrassment to what happened in August 2009. He obviously had the disallowed goal, which he was unfortunate with because he got up brilliantly. It was just that Højlund had rather carelessly positioned himself in a way that he clearly was interfering with James Trafford's goalkeeping. But he still then wanted to take the ball, move over the halfway line. Beautiful pass, as I said, very, very precisely struck. And I felt really pleased for him as well. In the after the game, there's a 35-year-old saying it's possibly the best night of his life. I'm not sure what Mrs. Evans would have to say about that, but that's just the how much he enjoyed it, and it was the first time he'd ever had his name chanted by United supporters as well, having a standalone song that he's inherited from Gary Neville. So having although he's not an ideal recruit and 35-year-old on a free 1-year contract, this was his moment in the sun, albeit in the darkness at Burnley, and you couldn't begrudge him that. You couldn't begrudge him at the end where he's conducting his on-pitch post-match interview and he's having his name chanted by United fans. You can't really blame him for, in that moment, saying it was the greatest night of his life.
I mean, on a human level, to see him score that header, which was a brilliant header, and for it to be ruled off, for VAR to intervene, that was a bit gutting. And then for him to respond 20 minutes later to play that pass, it was a stunning goal, it really was. Finish from Fernandes was fitting for the move as well. It was a brilliant strike. Does Fernandes get enough credit, Samuel, in your opinion? I mean, you look at his time at the club, he's been here for over 3 years now, January 2020, and you're pulling your face. But I just mean, time and time again, in these big moments, he just tends to deliver. When the team need him most, he can produce a goal, he can produce an assist, he can unlock a back line. And that goal was so important, really, in the context of the last few weeks, wasn't it?
He's won the Matt Busby Player of the Year award a couple of times, and the first time was after he joined
somehow
in January.
I still think he's, well, not amongst United fans, obviously, but I still think elsewhere, when you look at the midfielders in the Premier League, he's still a little bit underappreciated, I think, in the wider media.
I think his badgering or his interrogating of referees probably rubs people up the wrong way.
Yeah,
there's been he's prone to feigning agony as well. So I think in that sense he's probably not banked that much goodwill among punters outside Manchester. Those of us who've dealt with him, he's probably the best talker in the squad, which goes a long way. And his impact at United over the last 10 years, he's been by far and away the best signing they've made. That's not even up for debate. He has been. If anything, he should be the prototype for players United are looking to recruit in the future as well. He's got the right mentality. He's inherited the captaincy. His impact on the team was immediate. And what I liked about him again at the weekend, I wrote about it last season, is how often he affects games when he plays out of position. It happened so many times last season. He was playing on the right. I think the first time it was to accommodate Donny van de Beek, of all people, against Real Sociedad. He wins the header that goes to Ronaldo, that goes on to Garnacho, and United score against Sociedad for the winning goal. I think the following week he was playing on the right against Villa. It was a match-winning performance. I think he got the winning goal in that one. Played very well. He got the winner against Villa, playing from the right later on in the season. Scored against Manchester City, playing from the right. There are other games as well. I think maybe Leicester at home springs to mind last season. But he must have played under Ten Hag, starting as a right-sided player in maybe close to a dozen games now. And in almost all of them, he has had an impact. I suppose Brighton, the defeat against Brighton was the exception, but I'm not necessarily sure that was his role on the day. Watching him, it was a diamond formation, and McTominay seemed to be the one who was tasked with minding the right of that diamond shape. So I think from us, he does get credit. I mean, we've written positively about him already this season. He was the best player against Forest, and his impact in that game was profound. But he will, because he's the captain now as well, I think he's an easy target for certain punters, and there are times when the criticism is justified. Like I reflected in my piece on Saturday that his brand of leadership was a lot more constructive than it has been in recent weeks. Like he was just berating for Kundo Palistri in Munich for a pretty minor thing against Brighton. There was too much whinging. There are times when he does whinge too much as well, and of course, how he conducts himself is always going. What's going to dictate how he conducts himself is the scoreline. And at the weekend, the scoreline, United were never losing at any point against Burnley. So I think he was bound to be more constructive with his leadership. But as I've said a number of times, he is a worthy captain. Ten Hag made the right decision there in the summer by stripping Maguire of the captaincy. Fernandes was the obvious choice as well. I don't for 1 minute think that Ten Hag has made the wrong decision there. I certainly think that
he was the only choice.
When Ten Hag first came in, there were definite reservations about not taking the captaincy off Maguire, because that probably should have happened then, but certainly giving it to Fernandes at that time. I don't think he was ready for it, and there were signs in the Solskjaer and Rangnick season that showed that he wasn't ready for it. His performance level wasn't good enough, and when he was captain, that leadership, it wasn't there. He needed to mature a little bit more, and I think he did last season, and he was captain for the vast majority of it, and that does get overlooked, I suppose. So I think you have half a point, certainly, in terms of the nationwide, he's not a particularly popular player. I mean, you said yourself, was it Martin Dubravka having a catch-up picture with him on international duty and it not going down well with Newcastle fans, which is quite petty, but I suppose it gives you an indication of what opposition fans think of Fernandes, and he does, he has the odd derogatory chant aimed at him as well.
But he's very popular among United fans, and that's all that matters, really. And someone who is becoming increasingly popular, Samuel, is Sergio Reguilon. After his loan move from loan, Reguilon he's been probably a bright spark in the last few weeks, considering the poor performances. He's emerged with credit. We've discussed that on this podcast. Thought he was good again at left back. And Ten Hag came out after the game and said he was actually ill, but he requested to play. That's went down very well with supporters, as you can imagine. I mean, It's that sort of commitment. That should be the minimum, really, shouldn't it? And to see that from a lone player is really encouraging. But he's made a really good start, hasn't he, in the last few games to his career at the club? And who knows? I mean, you look a bit beyond that. Could he be signed on a permanent deal? Because he seems like a very good, decent backup left back.
I mean, that's a good question, because they've got the break clause for January, in that they can just give him back to Tottenham if they've got Malacia fit and Shaw fit again. I certainly think he's a better left back than Malacia. I don't think that's really even debatable. I know they're different profiles. Malacia is a little bit younger, and Reguilón has got a decent body of experience, having won the Europa League with Sevilla, playing under Mourinho at Tottenham. He didn't play a lot last season, but he did play under Diego Simeone at Sevilla. He'd have been playing under Julen Lopetegui. So it's quite a good CV to recruit someone in an emergency circumstances, which they were, given that they had a week left of the window open, and they had to move quickly. And he wasn't their first choice either. I mean, I think I was the first who wrote at the time that Reguilón was under consideration, but his wages were said to be maybe a bit of an issue for United. But in the end, they had to go for him because the Cucurella arrangement didn't work out for them. And really, his attitude's been exemplary so far. He's come into the team. It's always going to go a long way when you're playing through the pain barrier or the unwell barrier, and it wasn't visible either that he was struggling with illness at Burnley. It was only towards the end where he went down to the turf, and I think in those conditions
he looked to be holding his hamstring when he came off.
Well, that's what a friend said on comment.
Yeah,
that's what a friend said on. Messaged me at the game. He said that they'd said that on commentary. So for United's sake, you hope that's not the case. I mean, if that is, that's pretty damning on United's medical staff again.
If that's the case.
Well, you've got the option of possibly Dalot switching to left back where he's played there, and Lindelof has played at right back.
Yeah.
However way you look at it, it's not ideal. It wouldn't be ideal playing Dalot and Reguilón, to be honest, because you want to give them a breather, but at the moment they've got no choice. They can't start anyone else who's senior and specialist in those positions. You're looking down to the junior teams. You're looking at Sam Murray as a possible left back coming in. So it's not ideal, but he's got a good engine on him. I think we've always known that he's been a pretty good attack-minded left back, that he can supplement attacks in very positive ways, and that he's always going to be probing and proactive there. He's clearly quite gettable defensively, but the weekend, the way Burnley played, they didn't really seem to exploit him at all. The opportunities they had in the first half, I suppose the cross for the header that Onana kept out did come from Reguilón's side, but I'd take more umbrage at the fact that nobody was tracking. Is it Amdouni? Is that how you pronounce his name?
I think that's how you pronounce it. Yeah.
Nobody was tracking him, and that's been a problem for United already this season. So he's been a worthy signing so far, and it will be interesting to see what they do, because ideally you don't want to have three left backs, but this season shows that you probably do need one extra in certain areas because of the amount of injuries United have had, and a lot's going to happen between now and the start of January that I'm sure will dictate United's decision making on whether they keep Reguilón for the rest of the season or whether they give him back to Tottenham. But the way it's going, you'd be mad to let him go back to Spurs.
I thought Koleosho was probably Burnley's best player actually on the wing, and that was a bit bizarre though, because Dalot picked up that early yellow card. I think Company actually moved him out to the right eventually in the first half. So you'd think if Dalot'd been booked, do you think Koleosho would have stayed on him?
I thought that when Dalot made that tackle, I thought, my God, this has set the tone for another poor evening for him. But after that, he was actually pretty steady. He could easily have had an assist for Højlund early in the second half with a really good cross as well. He was much more like the Dalot in the second half in particular. He was much more like the Dalot of the first 4 months last season than he has been this calendar year. So it helps if United can have two consistent fullbacks, not just starting, but obviously playing at a respectable level and a level that is demanded of them. But the workload on fullbacks these days, we all know they have to go into midfield at times. The running is incessant. They are arguably the hardest working players in the team, and managing that load when you've not got cover in either area, that's not ideal for United, to say the least.
Although Dallo made us laugh after the game in his interview with MUTV when he said, "This is how we'll have to play for the rest of the season." But to be honest, Samuel, I think they're going to have to play a little bit better than that. It was a gutsy performance, don't get us wrong, and it was an important 3 points, but against better opposition, they're going to have to play better. We'll leave that there for part one. We'll be back in a moment for part two. Welcome back to part two of the Manchester is Red podcast, and I guess we'll discuss the team selection to begin this part, Samuel, because eyebrows were certainly raised on our desk when Scott McTominay was picked to start in midfield, obviously alongside Casemiro, and Hannibal Mejbri was in the number 10 position as the attacking midfielder with Fernandes on the right. McTominay was a bit of a risk, I guess, to start at Turf Moor. Ten Hag said before the game he wanted him to bring energy to the midfield, but I guess Ten Hag hadn't saw that clip of the referee outrunning McTominay in the Bayern Munich game last week, did he, clearly? So what did you think of that call, really? Because it had the potential to backfire, but in the end of the day, the 3 points were won. So can anyone really criticise it or scrutinise it after the game?
They had to win just to render that selection moot, really, because Ten Hag was in danger of undermining himself with that change, bringing McTominay in, because he was probably lucky to make the bench after what he did in Munich, or what he said he wanted
to start him against Arsenal. Interestingly enough, I can't remember what game it was before. It might have been before Brighton, actually. And he said if he hadn't been injured, McTominay would have started him against Arsenal. Well,
I remember you saying that at the time, and just dropping it on me there. It does. It's strange because last season, certainly the second half of it, McTominay was only starting games in the league and the cup when Casemiro was suspended. In the summer, he was available for transfer. I know the best coaches will always try and maximise the players they have, but however you dress it up, it's not ideal that McTominay is a player that Ten Hag does not want. And this midfield revamp that's not really got going yet because of injuries to certain players, probably three of the players have come in. When you look at United's roster there, McTominay is probably going to be at the back of the queue. You'd have Mainu ahead of him, you'd have Amrabat ahead of him, Casemiro, of course, Eriksen as well. With Mount, he'd be another, although his position might change now because Antony's not available. But I just thought it was a really dicey move, because everyone saw the clip of McTominay against Bayern Munich. There were a couple, in fact, but the infamous one was when he lost the ball to Upamecano and he didn't even jog back. He was ambling back, and I don't know what was going through his mind at the time. And when you bring a player in on the back of that and on the back of 3 defeats, and when someone like John Walters is highlighting it on Twitter and saying how embarrassing it is and it typifies the mentality at United, and nobody's quibbling with it either, you absolutely have to win the game. They did win the game. I'm not saying they won the game because of McTominay. I thought he was ordinary at best. I thought he had a dire first half. He was not as offensive in the second half. I think he was a lot more disciplined, and he just did what he's the bare minimum in terms of remaining disciplined with his position, not using the ball as badly as he was using it in the first half. He bucked his ideas up, really. He wasn't too adventurous. He wasn't too but he didn't exactly put himself about. And there are times when he does put himself about. I think there was one tackle he slid into where it was full-blooded and he won it, and you thought, well, you needed to do that, especially after what happened in midweek.
Do you think he was started because of that physicality, Samuel? I mean, you look at Burnley, they're a more proactive passing team these days in the company. But I remember sitting in the press box with you at Wolves, and there was a corner, and when you look at United's team, they're not a very tall team, or they're not a very physical side. And obviously McTominay's got a bit of stature about him. Do you think Ten Hag looked at him and thought that's the reason for his selection against Burnley, who are typically a physical team?
I think there will have been an element of that, but more so that he is a more robust and energetic midfielder than Christian Eriksen. It's probably the only thing he's got that Eriksen hasn't got.
It's hard not to be at the moment, isn't it?
And yeah, exactly. I mean, United went to Burnley 5 years ago, and Fellaini came into the team just to shield the back four and win these aerial balls that Mourinho knew United were going to be bombarded with, and that tactic did come off. But Burnley don't play that way, so there was definitely an element of risk to it. And you can imagine what a lot of the fans who would have been clicking through the turnstiles or drinking in the cricket ground before the game would have been thinking when they saw McTominay's name on the team sheet, and also Evans's name as well, because that wasn't exactly a selection that was going to instill confidence among supporters. His first start for United in, was it 3,000 odd days or whatever it was since
we
March
didn't mention it was
2015.
his 200th appearance as well. We should have said that actually in the first part, which was obviously a great milestone for him personally.
Yeah, I mean, Spike Lee said it best. You can't. Movies are fake. You can't write scripts in sport, and that's the way it was for Johnny Evans on Saturday night. The way it all developed, and the happy ending it had as well. It was a hell of a script.
You're trying to say that's the end,
90 minutes.
You're trying to call him off already?
I think if his season is, I would imagine he wouldn't be happy if his season has peaked with a win at Burnley in September. But you wouldn't begrudge him if that was the way it was. He will, irrespective of what happens this season, he will always have that Saturday night at Turf Moor. And I just hope he got away from Burnley, because when me and Rich were driving out, there were a couple of staggering drunks in the road. So it wasn't the place to go out afterwards, I think, and really celebrate a win. I think you'd want to get far away. It was, especially with the roadworks as well, it was not, there were more than just cones as hazards in the road.
Well, it's good to hear that your car actually left Turf Moor, because listeners wouldn't have realised after
poor
recording
Rich
the podcast on Friday, Rich's car was stuck in the car park, that's not a good Friday, is it, really?
No, that isn't. It really isn't.
I believe he was supposed to be watching the Wrexham game on the Saturday afternoon before going to Turf Moor. He missed that as well. So
I think it was a sign, though, given that Wrexham got thumped 5-0 at Stockport.
5-0, wasn't it?
His car breaking down was maybe, it was maybe just as well in the grand scheme of things.
Stick that in your documentary. Critics of Wrexham would say. Anyway, Samuel, back to United. Hannibal played as the number 10. I thought a decent performance. He could have done better, of course. Lost the ball on a few occasions, but it was pretty energetic. He pressed really well. I think him and Højlund link up really well in that regard, because they've got that kind of energy and they've got that intent and purpose, and they were putting pressure on Burnley's centre halves. So what was your verdict with Hannibal's performance? Because for me, it's great to see him in the team from the first whistle. We've been wanting a closer glance of him. He's been given this opportunity, and it has the potential to be a real turning corner in it, as far as his United career goes anyways.
Yeah, he did decently, and I think he was more impressive with his running and off the ball work than he was necessarily with the ball, but he did decently with the ball. I mean, his performance was pretty much bookended by creating 2 shooting opportunities for Rashford. That Rashford, the first one was quite a good chance, I thought, very early on as well. The second one, he was too selfish and should have shifted it to Casemiro. But it was a successful night for Mejbri. I mean, he completed 90 minutes for the first time for United. He didn't get booked either, which I know that sounds like a minor victory, but given that he'd got booked in 3 of his 4 first team appearances before then, and there have been questions about his temperament and whether he's...
I think he had 11 cards at Birmingham last season on loan. It was 11
exactly.
10. I was looking at it recently.
So to show that composure in a must-win game as well after 3 defeats for the team, that goes a long way as well. So I think it does feel like this could be his turning point now, because he's certainly the second in line as far as the number 10 position goes to Fernandes, as he should be. I think his pre-season form earned him that, and rightly so. The pivotal one came against Athletic Bilbao in Dublin, the final pre-season game, when he replaced Van der Beek, who was woeful at half time, and he did really well in the second half. So I think there's so much to get behind with Mejbri, because he is committed, because he is bustling, he is a good footballer, he does make things happen. There's the commitment is unquestionable there, and even although he was lucky that it was only a yellow card, not a red card, when he came on that time in the 4-0 drubbing at Anfield, United fans love to see someone come on who actually cared and was affronted by the position they were in. And this was on a night that Paul Pogba cried off after 5 minutes because Liverpool scored early. And United need more characters like Mejbri, who's a 20-year-old. He's hungry to succeed at the club. He's been at the club for 4 years now. So he's been overdue these opportunities, I would say. But he did, as I said, he did decently at Turf Moor, and you hope for his sake more opportunities are forthcoming. I certainly think for the immediate future he'll be involved in the run-up to the October internationals. He'll be in all 4 matchday squads at the very least, provided he's fit. So that has to be viewed as progress, given that he was at Birmingham on loan last season, and people at United were saying in the summer that there was a question mark over his future. So he's made good strides already.
It's funny because you don't ever really praise a player for getting a yellow card unless it's a professional foul, a bit of dark art. But Hannibal received quite a lot of praise, didn't he, after that Anfield game? And I remember Brian Robson coming out and saying that he loved it. He said, I know I shouldn't say it, but I loved him getting that yellow card because at least he showed a bit of character on a dreadful night, really.
Yeah. He was like Norman Whiteside, maiming Steve McMahon and John Barnes all those years ago.
If we look at Rashford then, Samuel, I was just checking how many goals he'd scored after 6 games last season while you were chatting there. He'd scored 3 goals after 6 games. He scored obviously once after 6 games this season, but I mean his decision making is being very poor. I think that stood out to a lot of fans and us as well when watching the games across the last few weeks. It was the same again against Burnley on Saturday night. A few times when he should have made a pass and he didn't, or he chose to play a pass when he should have had a shot. I think there was a moment when he was on the edge of the box and he could have got a shot away and he tried to play in Highland. And I think if a more confident Rashford would have maybe put that in the back of the net. So what was your verdict on Rashford's performance? Because it just doesn't seem to be going right at the moment, does it?
Well, no would be the short answer, I suppose.
Put simply.
I mean, with that early chance he had from Mejbri, that was a really good chance, and there was just no conviction on it. He didn't even really seem to look for any options in to his right either, and he has got Højlund there, and it was noticeable during the Brighton game that Højlund, during a stoppage after Rashford hadn't passed him the ball, he waved his arms in the air as if to say, "Look, I'm here. You can pass to me. I'm not Wout Weghorst. I can do something with the ball," and it was one of the season ticket holders. They said that the problem with Rashford is that he's 25, but he still plays like an 18-year-old. I thought that was quite a good summary, in that aspects of his play you associate with someone, with a teenager who's coming through, and you've got to iron out the kinks. When you're 25, you should be the finished article or close to the finished article, but his decision making at times now is worse than it was under Louis van Gaal, or worse than it was under Jose Mourinho. And he had a terrific season last season, but he started this season. I wonder whether his confidence is a little bit dented by playing up front the first couple of games and not playing well. He then had a pretty good game, or a decent game, against Forest. He was involved in all 3 goals. His impact was significant. He won the penalty. It was a brilliant pass for the equaliser as well. He did superbly for the first goal that day for Ericsson when he got the cross in, and he had that variety about his game last season where you didn't always know that he was going to cut inside, that he would actually use his left foot, and he did it, I think, it might have been Conor Cody's own goal in the cup game against Everton in January. And of course he was in career best form last season. At the moment he is regressing, and I didn't think that with the chanting for Garnacho's name in the second half, it was so brief and with such gusto that it was practically a command for, can you bring him on? And they're very good the way they get their message across, United fans, because it's subtle without outwardly, outright digging out a player or digging out a manager. And of course with Solskjaer, they did not turn on him until it just became too much to bear at Watford, and it was the last time they saw him. He was sacked the next morning. But they very, very rarely turn on their own players. And they weren't turning on Rashford, but they clearly wanted Garnacho to come on. And if you're bringing Garnacho on, you're most probably taking him off for Rashford because they play in the same position. So Garnacho, I'd imagine, could start against Palace in the cup game. I still think that Rashford, given that United beat Burnley, he'll start in the weekend game. But that undroppable status that he had for pretty much all of last season, you can't say that he has that now at the moment.
Why is this so,
body
Samuel?
language
Is he just,
wasn't as...
Are we just accepting that Rashford's just a hot and cold player? We've saw this, I mean, over the last few years. He'll have a fantastic season. Great in terms of goals and assists, and like you say, he looks undroppable, which he was last season. He was the best player, I'd say. And he comes into this campaign, he suddenly looks low on confidence. Things aren't just quite dropping for him. Is it a case of, look, it could just turn on the click of a fingers, really? If he scores 2 goals in a game, then he rises in confidence again. He's back to the player he was. Is he just that kind of player, do I think, now? Because, I mean, there was talk of him becoming a world-class player last season. But to be world-class, you have to be consistent. And he just doesn't have that consistency, does he?
No, he doesn't, and he did last season. But you can't. I mean, in terms of is a player world class, you don't just gain that status after a good month or two. You have to do it, season after season. It's not months, it's years. And Rashford has that potential. He can be a devastating attacker, as we've seen a number of times over the last 7 years or so. But at the moment, it's just not. He's not at the races, and his body language wasn't that negative at the weekend against Burnley. Again, the scoreline makes the difference. United are winning. When United are losing, his body language isn't. It's not been good, and that can, that can spread. And certainly against Brighton, there was some murmurs of discontent from supporters, the way he reacts. I think there was one moment in the second half where the ball was dropping and he was waiting for it to drop for him, and then a Brighton player nipped in and got it, and there were sighs of exasperation from a lot of supporters, and that's happened once or twice. So he just, at the moment, he can't get going, certainly in a United shirt, and it's still early enough in the season that you can say his form is a blip and he's just in a bit of a rut at the moment. But it doesn't take much for it to become a big concern, and we've seen with him in recent years that when his confidence is dented, it can take a while to address that dent. He only got 5 goals a couple of seasons ago in what he accepted was the worst season he ever had, and even the second half of the 2021 season, his performance level was quite poor, but he had. I mean,
Ralph Rangnick was starting Fernandes and Pogba ahead of him. Do you remember that at the Etihad against Manchester City, starting 2 midfielders ahead of him?
And I suppose some supporters will look at it and say he got a new contract in the summer. He's got to back that up, and you're always going to get maybe a little bit more grief and criticism when something like that has happened, where you've been rewarded for good form, but if your form starts tailing off, as you said last week, there have been suggestions that some of are scapegoating him, and certainly some online are definitely scapegoating him. It's extremely vindictive, but he has played poorly this season. There are no two ways about that, and as I said, you can't say at the moment that he's an undroppable player for United.
I mean, we've talked about Rashford's lack of running and his tracking back the last few weeks. So then is it not a surprise that Ten Hag comes out and says that he didn't want Garnacho on because he liked the organisation of the team? Was Rashford really contributing to it that much that those comments are justified? Because I think, obviously, the fans they wanted Garnacho to come on. I mean, the game was kind of screaming out for him. He could have stretched it and got him behind Burnley with his pace. But yeah, it was an unused substitution. And dare I say it, Samuel, has this got anything to do with his brother's social media activity? We saw that recently. His brother's been liking the odd tweet or sending the odd teasing tweet suggesting Garnacho should be playing more. Is Ten Hag got a burner account on Twitter? And is he seeing these tweets? Guardiola's got a Twitter account, so I wouldn't put it past Ten Hag.
I don't think that has anything to do with it, to be honest. I mean, I didn't think the game was necessarily crying out for Garnacho, but he's a popular player among the supporters, and they can see that Rashford's not playing well, and it wasn't a daft shout to say that Garnacho should come on for Rashford. But as Ten Hag said after the game, I think he quite liked the organisation that United had in the second half, and they did limit Burnley to hardly any chances. I mean, Joe Rodriguez
was Rashford really contributing to that organisation? Sorry, Samuel, for interrupting, but was Rashford really?
No, I don't think. I think if you're winning and the opposition aren't getting much joy against you, you're inclined to stick with the team. And the only changes that Ten Hag made were both enforced. Evans, was tiring, understandably, and Reguilon was unwell. He didn't make a proactive change. I think if Reguilon was fine and Evans wasn't fatigued, they probably would have gone. Oh, sorry, Amrabat came on as well, didn't he? Just late on to shore things up. But I don't think that if Evans was fine and Reguilon was fine, then there might have just been the one change all evening. So I think with managers have different challenges with different players, and different players come from different generations, and that's the challenge. You've got Garnacho, who has been on this extraordinary stratospheric rise since he joined United. The 2022 year he had was extraordinary. It was remarkable, and of course he gets a new contract and he's here for the long term. He's 19. He's the poster boy. The fans love him. They wanted him to be the number 7, and it was certainly under consideration. And if he's not starting, with a kid like that, and I think his brother's something like 15. I mean, I dread to think what I tweeted, what I would have tweeted if I was a 15-year-old on Twitter. It was bad enough when I was 25 or in my early 20s, on Twitter.
What do you mean you're still doing it now?
Naivety and junior, being junior, being puerile or being immature, that comes with the territory. And Garnacho's been prone to the odd post on Instagram, which has been, you could have said it was somewhat cryptic or ambiguous, but I don't think there's been a massive it's not the point yet where there's a concerted clamour for him to come into the team, but he might have he should have a good opportunity against Palace in midweek, because that would be one change I would make. I'd certainly bring Garnacho in for Rashford for the cup game.
I would like to see his pace for those last 10 minutes. I think that was my point. I mean, Burnley were kind of pressing for a goal there was a lot of huff and puff without much penetration, wasn't it, really, from Burnley? But for on the transition, Garnacho would have been quite useful in those closing stages. But we'll come on to Crystal Palace in the next part, Samuel. We'll leave it there for part 2. So, Samuel, the Carabao Cup defence starts on Tuesday night. How exciting. United are obviously the defending champions in the competition after last season's trophy win against Newcastle at Wembley in February. And the start on it against Crystal Palace on, like I said, tomorrow night, so Tuesday night. Any changes for the game? You've just kind of suggested you bring in Garnacho. I would as well. And Mason Mount and Harry Maguire are back in training, so that's a positive as well. I mean, I'd quite like to see probably Mason Mount on the right. Dare I say it again, Anthony Marshall through the middle with Garnacho on the left. What would your team be for the visit of Palace tomorrow?
Well, there's not a press conference today, so I don't think United are going to be too transparent with team news. Maybe they will in terms of Ten Hag speaking to the club website. That might have been heard by the time this has come out. But of course, with Reguilon, I mean, even if he is fit, if Dallow's fit, you have to think quite long and hard about what you do with the fullbacks, because there's no senior or specialist cover there. I think that if you're going to make the most of Harry Maguire, you've got to play him in a game like this. Really, I mean, this is his. This is really.
You said that with such excitement in your voice.
I mean, if you're not using him in the Champions League games, because they've got to get points on the board as soon as possible, and that could go down to the wire in terms of qualifying for the last 16. I think that their final group game's against Bayern Munich as well, so that has the makings of a really big night at Old Trafford. Their away record isn't that good, so there's no guarantee they're going to win either of those games against Copenhagen and Galatasaray. So you're not going to be rotating Maguire into those games. The Premier League, you want to be playing your strongest or most committed team every week. Harry Maguire is not in United's strongest team. He's barely in their second team. Someone was saying last week, when they had all these injuries, all the absent players for the Bayern Munich game, there were 12 players, and you'd probably have Maguire as the 12th man, because they had enough defenders to field that injured 11. But he has. I think this is the time to bring him in for a start. And there's always pressure that comes with playing for United, but the pressure of a League Cup game is never going to be as intense as a Premier League game. I suppose the interesting strategy with Ten Hag and rotation is that he doesn't rotate en masse very often. When he did against Sociedad last season, they lost at home, and that defeat really cost them winning the group and triggered that playoff against Barcelona in the Europa League. I think he made 8 changes for the League Cup quarterfinal, but that was against Charlton, who are in League One. Palace are currently a point behind United, and of course Palace will make changes as well because that's what Premier League clubs do in the League Cup and the FA Cup. But United, because of the state of their squad, they have got to protect certain players. I mean, Casemiro, I think he started all 7 games this season. You shouldn't be starting him in this game. You put him on the bench possibly. Varane, you probably hold back for the weekend. Fair enough, put Marshall in. Mount needs to run out ahead of resuming Premier League duties. Amrabat needs to start because I think in time he'll probably come into the midfield with Casemiro. A midfield duo of Amrabat and Eriksen has the makings of being quite balanced and productive. And with the goalkeeper situation, he's got to have a look at Bayendir a few times before the Africa Cup of Nations, because there's a chance that Andre Onana will miss a significant number of games if he's in Cameroon's squad and goes to that in the new year. So they've got to be quite a few changes, I think. I don't think he's got much choice. I think it would be, given the spate of injuries they've had this season, I think it would be extremely risky to limit the number of changes from the weekend.
And yet, saying that, Samuel, I wouldn't be completely shocked if there were just a few changes. I mean, we know that he doesn't really have the word rotation in his dictionary, does he? And I cast my mind back to Nottingham Forest in the Carabao Cup, actually, the second leg, when it made no sense to play Casemiro. And he played Casemiro when the tie had already been won, essentially, really. So, yeah, probably a few debuts, full debuts for Bayendir and Amrabat. I think you're right in that. But it's really important, isn't it, to get a cup run again? I mean, they made the final of the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup last season, fell short against Manchester City in the FA Cup, obviously. But I was watching the Arsenal-Tottenham game yesterday afternoon. I was just thinking these teams are looking really good. And I think top 4, it's going to be tough this year. You've got Liverpool looking arguably back to the best. You've got Manchester City at the top, and then Arsenal and Tottenham are going to be competing and going to be there or thereabouts. So a cup run, it's going to be important to kind of keep morale levels high, isn't it, Samuel, across this season?
Well, United have won 1 trophy in the last 6 years, and that was the League Cup last season, and it did matter. You could tell on the day that it's not a trophy that United have traditionally cherished, but they did that day, and they need more of those days. And they got to the FA Cup final. They were pretty soundly beaten against City, so that all that work of getting there counts for nothing in the end. But the aim for this season, the minimum objective this season, has to be to have a better season than last season, and that means there has to be a trophy win of some sort. And of course, last season the League Cup was seen as the earliest possible point to get a trophy on the plinth. They did that, and they tried to kick on from there. And overall, last season, 3rd place finish, 1 League Cup, FA Cup finalists, quarter finalists in the Europa League. Overall, it was a successful season given the starting point. The expectations have been raised a bit this season, albeit tempered in recent weeks because of the results and the start that United have had. But there's always pressure at United, and they've always got to be striving to be better than they were last season. Otherwise, what's the point? So I don't think they'll be tossing this off anyway. I mean, 2 years ago when they coincidentally then they had back-to-back games in the league and the cup against West Ham, and they went out on a whimper in the 3rd round against West Ham, and they were, at the time it didn't feel like it was that important a defeat because they had bigger fish to fry. But then at the weekend they lost at home to Aston Villa, and then that was the time when it hadn't started spiralling, but there were certainly signs that things were not going to go well for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer that season in retrospect. Erik ten Hag is nowhere near the thin ice that Solskjaer was on in September and October of 2021, and rightly so. And it's reassuring for United that they've got a manager who will not allow the players to ride roughshod over him as well. I mean, going back to last week, that the misgivings about certain decisions recently from certain players, those players are very, very much in the minority.
Samuel, I've just looked at the fixture list there before we jump off. Crystal Palace in the Carabao Cup, obviously. Then in the Premier League, it's a double header this week. Galatasaray at home, Brentford at home, Sheffield United away, who have just been absolutely tonked 8-0, and then Copenhagen at home, and it's Manchester City at home after that. But I mean, you've got 6 games there, which you look at them on paper, and United should be looking to win all them, shouldn't they really? And then if you can come through that period, the season's looking completely different. The mood has changed, hasn't it?
Absolutely, and that has to be the minimum aim. Like, if anyone connected with United is saying, "Oh, we'll take 3 wins and a draw from this period, wouldn't be too bad before the internationals," no, you've got to be aiming for 4 wins. You've got to get points on the board in the Champions League. You've got to stay in the League Cup, and you've got to climb up the ladder in the Premier League table. There's a decent chance they'll be in the top 6 going into the October internationals, which would be a much healthier position than they were after the Brighton game, given that they were in the bottom half of the table. I think they're up to 8th at the moment, or something like that. And they've got players coming back as well. There are going to be opportunities for Ten Hag to trial some new things, because those new things that come in might have to be long term. I'm thinking Amrabat in midfield, Mount on the right. Those two at the moment, you'd probably say they are in United's best starting side when everyone's available. And they've got to use the Burnley game as the cliched springboard. They won. It wasn't a stylish win by any stretch of the imagination, but they won, and any win would have done at the weekend. And now they've got to use that to improve in these upcoming games, improve the performances, improve the playing style. I mean, Palace and Brentford are good sides. I think that the cliche about that there are no easy games in the Premier League, it is by and large quite true, unless you're playing away at Sheffield United. As
you follow the Twitter account that clips up the football cliches and adds them into a video? Because there's one that says that there's no easy games in the Premier League, with an array of Premier League managers.
I know. I've probably avoided my whole life of saying that, and now I think it's probably to an extent true. But fortunately, Sheffield United, fortunately Sheffield United have kind of like, they're the exception to the rule there. But Brentford and Palace yesteryear, that would have been seen as, they'd have been home bankers, but they're not anymore. They're two very well run, well organised, good Premier League sides who've got good players up top as well, who can hurt United, as United discovered against Brentford last season, and also Palace last season. Elise's late free kick was a tremendous goal, and Palace have won at Old Trafford a couple of times in recent years. So United certainly can't get complacent just because these teams are outside the elite. They're going to have to properly turn up for them.
I mean, it's interesting, the national conversation about kind of United start the season, obviously very poor, but then you look at Chelsea, it kind of puts things in perspective, doesn't it? 14th in the Premier League, 5 points, 6 games in.
Oh yeah, they are so the basket case club.
Yeah,
it's fantastic the way Chelsea run. They've spent $1 billion in a year, and they still field teams on a weekly basis. And I'm looking at 1 or 2 players and I'm thinking, who the hell is that? And I'm not being insular. That they are starting players I've literally never heard of. And when you pay over £1 billion for a completely new squad, you expect to have a team of players that are recognisable to the wider world. So that helps United as well. I mean, Chelsea are this week's crisis club, that's for certain.
So what you're saying is Todd Bowley is not an awesome owner?
I don't think so, no.
Thanks for your time, Samuel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen.
And thanks to listeners as usual. Enjoy the game tomorrow night. We'll be back, I believe, in midweek and with one later on Friday afternoon, ahead of playing Crystal Palace again. Like I said, it's a double header of fixtures this week. So in the meantime, head across to the YouTube channel, taken across nicely with the subscribers. And as usual, as I always say, we're on all your audio platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc., all the leading platforms. So thank you very much. Thanks for listening. Take care.